And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Alright, today there's no component drop, there's no green screen. I just want to show you a bit about the game Thunderstone. Now, Thunderstone is a game that is a deck building game. It was the third deck building game to come out. First was Dominion, then Arctic Scavengers, and since then there has been multiple expansions for the game. Now, when I first played the game, I liked Thunderstone well enough. I didn't love it though, but as time has gone by, I enjoy it more and more. However, one of the main reasons I enjoy it is the way that I play it. Now, before I explain to you the way that I play Thunderstone, I have to give a lot of props to Richard Launius. He is the person who showed me how to play it this way. He sent me all, his is much more grandiose than mine. He even does a few more things than I do. We differ on a few minor points, but it was basically his idea, but I've taken it and run with it, and I thought I would show it to you all. This is what we call Epic Thunderstone. And this is really the only way I'm going to play Thunderstone these days. So you can take Thunderstone and play it this way, and you have to store it differently, and I'll show you a little bit. But what is Epic Thunderstone? Epic Thunderstone is, for those of us who don't like playing with a preset number of cards, we want to use everything. Everything that comes out. And you can see how big these stacks are here in the middle, but they're still not that big. So what I've done is this. And of course, this is the kind of thing that can be, changed and done completely differently. And you can make any kind of modifications you want. But first I have my normal decks over here. I have my dagger, my iron rations, my torch, and my huge pile of militia. I personally always use the special disease deck that came in Doomgate. So those decks, we always use those anyway. But here's where we change everything on all the other decks. So let's take a closer look at each of these decks. So what I've done, instead of taking multiple cards, 10 random cards out of the, 200 different cards now? I don't know how many cards there's. I'm just making up numbers. So I put them in different piles. The first thing I do is I take all the weapons and shuffle every weapon together, and then I split them into 3 different piles. And so, for example, in this pile, the top card is the recursive bow, but then there's the skull breaker. Then underneath that's the blue fire staff, then the blessed hammer, then another recursive bow, then the war hammer, then another recursive bow, then the flaming sword, then the frost giant axe, etc. And so there's all sorts of weapons, and I make 3 piles. You could make 2, you could make 4. I make 3 piles because I feel the choice of 3 different weapons is good. Sometimes I have played games where I put it into 4 different piles. The next 2 decks up here. This one here, I put all the food items. So here we have the unicorn steaks, but there's also feast, good berries, ambrosia, different cards, glow berries, all the different things that are different kinds of food. Alright, and then over here, I have items that create light. So here I have guiding light, a lantern, ambulance of power, lightstone gem. And you say, well, wait a minute, those glow berries are food and light. Well, I stuck them in food. Why did I make that determination? I just did. You can do what you want. Up here I have 2 big decks of spells. And again, I suppose that you could put spells into one deck by themselves, but there's all different spells. And we find that we don't use spells as often as the other things, although we do use them. I'm not saying they're bad cards. So all the different spells, I have them split into 2 decks. Just like over here, another one with 2, and this one I'm debating and knocking it down to 3, is where I put all my villagers and mercenaries into 2 different decks. So all the different villagers and mercenaries that you can use throughout the course of the game are split into 2 decks. But like I said, I'm thinking about taking it down to 2. But here's where the fun for me is of the game. In the original game, there was 4 different heroes are in every version of the game. And they're level 1s, and then once you buy all the level 1s, you get level 2s and level 3s. I don't like the fact that you can buy level 2s and level 3s. I'd rather you have to level them up. So I've taken all the level 1 characters that there are, and I've made 4 different decks. And so there's a ton of different characters, and you can look at all these cards, and you can see them. And so you can buy any of the level 1 characters. Now, you can still upgrade to the level 2s, and so in the box over here, I have all the level 2s sorted out so that if you upgrade them with experience, you can check You can just go in here in alphabetical order and find it and say, okay, I'm going to find a divine. There's a divine. Get the card I need and upgrade it. Now, with all these different decks out here, by my count here, I have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different decks plus the original 4. So I have 17 decks, and that's a lot of different decks, but I don't care. It's a lot of fun. Now, one of the rules that we've incorporated in this is before you go to the village, before you buy one of these cards, you're allowed to take one of the top cards of a deck. Let's say I don't want Power Word Kill. I don't know why you want it, and you're allowed to put that on the bottom before you buy. Ooh, Stalking Spell. If there are multiple cards, let's say, for example, down here in Weapons, there's a polearm on top of all 3 of these, or just on 2 of them, I can take all the polearms I see and put them on the bottom. But I can only do that with 1 card. So there's always an option to kind of change things up. Sometimes I put one on the bottom just so someone else can't buy it, but usually I put it on the bottom because I'm looking for a different kind of card from that category. And so to me, this will really vary your deck. You're not going to make decks that are built around having 6 of the same character, because you probably won't have 6 of the same character. It gives the game a much more thematic feel. It does mean, though, that there are some cards which I don't use. I keep them in this box here just in case. I have all the randomizer cards. I don't use those. In fact, you'll see from one of the new expansions, I didn't even open the randomizer cards because I just don't use them anymore. Some enemies don't work. Some heroes like the Phalanx don't work. And so all that stuff just comes into here. Speaking of enemies, this is one of the changes that I've made. I know that some people disagree with, but to me, I never liked the fact that the big giant enemy could come out first and just sit up in the front. It just didn't mesh well. So what I've done is I've sorted all the enemies out into 3 decks, and I've done this by how much experience each enemy gives you. So I have here all the enemies that give you 1, all the enemies that give you 2, and then all the rest of the enemies. Most of them give you 3, but there's a few that give you 4. And I shuffle them together. Now there's different ways that I can build a dungeon deck here. For me, what I normally do is just take 10 of the level 1s, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 10 level 2s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then 4 of the level 3s, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I take another 4 level 3s, 1, 2, 3, 4. Randomly take one of the Thunderstones, which doesn't really matter if you're playing with multiple Thunderstones, and then shuffle all these cards together, the Thunderstone with these last ones, and stick that on the bottom. So now I have my dungeon deck. So when we turn them over at the beginning, they're all level 1s that we're going to be fighting. And then level 2s. Now some people put in, for example, they'll put in 4 level 1s per player. So if you have 3 players, you'll put in 12 level 1s and 12 level 2s. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could do it that way, and I probably will at some point. But since I usually play 2 or 3 player anyway, I just stick in 10 of each, because I like the game to be the same. And so because of this, you're going to be killing monsters easier, and as the harder monster comes, you hopefully be ready to take them on. I don't know. I like it. Richard even has this even more elaborate thing where when you go to level 2s, there's a door of the dungeon which has traps. And I didn't even mention the traps and the treasures, but you could mix those in and put maybe like 1 or 2 per level if you want it, and mix those into the dungeon too. So that's it. That's Epic Thunderstone. I mean, it takes a little bit more work to put it away. No, I don't even think that's true, because I don't have to sort these cards out. These piles, I just put them all back in the box, each with their own divider. The only thing I have to sort out are the level 2 and level 3 heroes, and put them back into their divider. The rest of these piles, we just put them all together. The monsters, I mean, I'm sorting those things out anyway. And here, you never know what monster you're going to come up with. It's not a perfect setup. There are some monsters and some heroes which don't work as well in this setting. There's some monsters which work better in pairs, or some heroes like the Phalanx that work better together. And so some monsters and things I've taken out. The newest expansion had a couple monsters that destroyed cards from the deck. The Raiders and the Siege weapons. They destroyed cards here. Well, it's not going to matter if you destroy cards here when there's, 50 cards in the pile. So you have to kind of pick and choose what you want. But I'm telling you, while I have some people in my gaming group who do not like playing this way, they like playing the original way, most people I've run into seem to enjoy this way better. So there you go. The Launius / with a very small, much smaller font, Vasel variant, Epic Thunderstone. Now you know how to play it.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.